and gentlemen, please welcome Television Academy Chairman and CEO, Frank Shermer.
Good evening. This is my first time welcoming you to the Television Academy as the new chairman of this organization. Thank you. I'm very proud to be standing here and to be working with your very energized Board of Governors who, like me, are committed to showcasing innovators and innovation and working with our members to play a dynamic role in television's evolution or revolution. To that end, it gives me great pleasure to introduce what will be an entertaining and thought-provoking event tonight. When the unique sensibilities of the documentary filmmaker and the music composer collaborate, the story always reaches another dimension. Tonight, you'll meet and hear from award-winning producers, directors, and composers who are shaking up the documentary world and our industry as well. My sincere thanks to the documentary governor, Lois Vasson, music governor Ricky Minor, and composer and PGEC member Miriam Cutler for working so diligently these past months where they've been brainstorming and producing this event with our event production staff. And my thanks to all of our event staff as well as all our theater and marketing staffs who had made this evening possible. And now, please welcome to the stage Lois Vasson and Ricky Minor.
This event grew out of a desire to showcase the extraordinary work being done during this golden age of documentary. Unlike scripted storytelling, documentarians begin without knowing where the stories will take them. They commit to capture the true stories as they unfold.
And like all great television, documentaries are collaborative art that bring together many craftswomen and men, including cinematographers, sound designers, graphic artists, and composers.
We're very proud to represent our fellow Television Academy governors and the staff as we honor our intersectionality and better acknowledge and celebrate the differences among us. Happening this week, the first week of March, this event honors inclusion and both Black History Month and Women's History Month.
We're so excited to share this evening of film and music with you. I'd like to thank our house conductor, Chris Walden. And special thanks to Simon J., Lenny Wee, Larry Wilson, David Lowe, Drew Aldrich, and our audio tech team. Give them a big hand, please. The Academy would also like to acknowledge the American Federation of Musicians Union, Local 47, for their ongoing support. Now, this evening would have been impossible to achieve without the dedication and nonstop focus on what you will find to be a very moving and unique event. Please give thanks to our Senior Director of Event Production, Ben Carter. Come on, give him more. This guy didn't sleep at all. No, let him hear you, come on. Yeah, because he's asleep right now, so thanks for waking him up. And now, to introduce her documentary, 13th, please welcome filmmaker Ava DuVernay. Come on, stand up, give her a round of applause. Come on, guys, I can't hear it. Come on, give her that love. Show me some love.
Take it away, dear.
Thank you. Oh, that's kind. Very kind. Thank you so much. Thank you. I was just commenting backstage how wonderful it is to see so many fellow members here tonight on a rainy night to celebrate music and documentary. It means we're all really nerds. It's fantastic. But anyway, to share a little bit about our film, the clause in our Constitution that our film springs from is the 13th Amendment. And it says that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, shall exist in the United States. And with that simple clause, the 13th gave oppressors the opportunity to make blackness a crime. So now, over 150 years later, when we examine the mass incarceration and gross disenfranchisement of millions of Americans, the one thing that we cannot use is a blunt instrument. Every life affected by systemic oppression of poor people of color has its own narrative, a lone song to be sung. And since we cannot speak to the 2.3 million of Americans incarcerated for our film, or to the millions who suffered under Jim Crow, or to the thousands slain in extrajudicial killings, one of the ways we hear them is through the voices in our film's music. Music as identity, music as resistance, and too often music as elegy. So one of my primary goals in making 13th was to bring all of the pieces of the prison industrial complex puzzle together, both to teach and examine the insidiousness of slavery's many incarnations. And there's no better way to bring all of the pieces of this film together than with its score. Please enjoy a selection of music from our brilliant composer and my dear friend, who's not here tonight, but I sent him a shout out all the way in New York, and he sends you his love, Jason Moran. Thank you.
One of the things that people have to bear in mind is that when we think about slavery, it was an economic system, and the demise of slavery at the end of the Civil War left the Southern economy in tatters. And so this presented a big question. There are 4 million people who were formerly property, and they were formerly kind of the integral part of the economic production system in the South, and now those people are free. And so what do you do with these people? How do you rebuild your economy? The 13th Amendment loophole was immediately exploited.
After the Civil War, African Americans were arrested in mass. It was our nation's first prison boom.
You were basically a slave again. The 13th Amendment says that, hey, except for criminals, everybody else is free. Well, now if you're criminalized, that doesn't apply to you.
They were arrested for extremely minor crimes like loitering or vagrancy.
And they had to provide labor to rebuild the economy of the South after the Civil War.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Ava DuVernay and cinematographer Hans Charles.
That was short and sweet. I was like, we were just getting ramped up. Hi, Hans.
Hi, Ava.
So this is one of our two cinematographers, Hans Charles, our other cinematographer, a beautiful black woman cinematographer, who's
Kira
a
Kelly.
unicorn, we call her. We bring her out of the unicorn farm to every now and then as a black woman cinematographer, Kira Kelly. Both were nominated for Emmys for their work. And so I think we just want to talk a little bit about the marriage of picture and sound and music.
Yeah.
In the documentary space, for me, 13th was my third documentary. Before I'd even made Selma or the independent narrative films I made before Selma out of Sundance, I was making docs. So the first filmmaking I embraced as a indie filmmaker with no money was documentary. I figure if you've got something good to follow and a camera, you can figure the rest out for not a lot of money. And so we met each other in the independent space.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've been working with each other for a while.
For a long while. I feel like, we go way, way back.
Yeah.
But I worked on your first two documentaries, which was great.
Yes.
And it was just amazing. And they were always, the first one was tied to music, the one that I worked with you. So it was about the history of music. So I always feel like as a cinematographer, music is sort of the anchor that I create images from. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing to see that work here in 13th.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The first documentary we worked on was, the two were about music, mostly about hip hop culture.
Yep, absolutely.
And this one, in this film, we span 100 minutes. We spend 100 minutes spanning 400 years. So our goal was to create a primer. I didn't think people would really want to sit down for 2+ hours or a documentary series about this very muscular, intense subject matter.
Yeah.
But you might be able to get people down for 100 minutes, and if you could, what could you pack into that? So we challenged ourselves to put together 400 years of oppression and criminalization in that time. But Jason's part of it was so huge because we asked him to take our images
Absolutely.
and address, the black musical tradition across the centuries. And so as each kind of century and decade and year and sequence moves along, he's applying different black musical tradition to each one, whether it's jazz or blues
Yeah.
or opera. We have opera
Absolutely.
singer, we have hip hop. So as we were making the images and you saw the marriage of the two together, I remember talking with you early on, and you were surprised by how cohesively it all fit.
Yeah, Jason, I had a conversation with Jason about it, and he said that he really wanted the music to draw the audience into the history of what was being felt. And he wanted to create moments, sonic moments, that allowed the emotions to sink in for the audience. And for him, it was sort of traumatic, in a sense, creating this music, because even though he had the tranquility of his piano and he had these moments that he could create with the orchestra and everything he was doing in terms of composition, he knew when he left the sanctity of his home, he would face some of the same issues that we bring up in the documentary. So for him, working through this doc had a sort of trauma to it. So it's kind of interesting that in the post space that he would feel that emotion.
Well, I felt that while shooting it and while posting it, and we were all, it was intense.
It was, yeah. I mean, I remember talking to you about it when you approached me about working on the doc, and I on set, I think I confessed that I had a brush with the law and that my life could have gone into a separate direction had it not turned out the way it was. So for me, listening to all the interviews and the interviews that didn't make it to the final piece, those interviews still stick with me. And so I feel like the music really draws some of that out, and it allows a certain kind of reflection and peace, and it allows you to wrestle with the issues that are brought up in the documentary. And so for me, that's the beauty of what Jason did in the score.
Yeah. I'm really happy about the new, Ricky Minor, one of our great governors, was talking to me backstage about this new category that, I hope that's been announced. Has it been announced? Can I talk about it?
Okay,
Okay,
good.
great. Well, you guys know about it then. The new category that's announced for kind of outstanding achievement in music that has been created for music composition that's been created for documentary series. Because I really feel like, isn't that incredible? Because it's really a different animal when we're making docs, when we're out there shooting, and we're shooting off of a script. There is no script. We're finding it. Sometimes there's not a script. Sometimes there is. But in our early work on this, when I was working with you, there was no script. We're out there. We're finding images. We're putting together story. We're creating script in the edit, and the music has to be evolving as the picture evolves. A very different process. Jason was my composer in Selma, which was his first score, incredible. And he's a Kennedy Center advisor. He's a MacArthur genius. He's brilliant. So he did Selma, and then, so that was very much the script. He knew in advance what those were going to be. He saw dailies as they were coming in. We were seeing themes as we were shooting. With this, it's
yeah, there he's in the post side,
Yeah.
and you're changing, you're evolving, you're discovering things in the process, and he sort of has to kind of wait to see what you're going to come up with, and then you guys kind of marry that together. So the fact that he's able to kind of continue that pace alongside of your discovery, crafting the piece is really amazing. And then the final.
It is, and it's its own way of working in music. So I commend the Academy on recognizing that and acknowledging it within this new category. And I'm excited to see all of the great musicians and composers that'll be recognized within it. So they didn't tell me we could do this, and I can't really see anyone, but if I do like this, I can. And I have time for like one question or two questions. Does anyone have one? The governor's gonna kill me. Ricky Minor's like, don't go off script, but I'm a rebel, a reckless. Anyone have a question about documentary and film? 13th, no, one here. Hi. Good, thank you. Thank you. The original idea to put this documentary together, I was approached by Netflix. Ooh, the boogeyman. So ridiculous.
Oh, Ava.
Approached by Netflix to ask me if there was anything I want to make. Lisa Nishimura there, who's in charge of documentary, said, I know early in your career you worked on documentary. Is there anything that you might be interested in doing? And I said, I always wanted to do something about the prison industrial complex. Fascinating subject matter. She said, great, go for it. We want to, amplify your voice. And so when I got in there, I saw that you can't really talk about the prison industrial complex as it is now without giving it context, historical context. And so it became this sprawling piece with a lot of moving parts, a lot bigger than she originally anticipated. But to have that kind of freedom there and that kind of amplification of an idea through them really led me to the places that we go in 13th. And I know that it's been transformative for many people who knew nothing about these issues. It's kind of a crash course in a certain part of American history.
Absolutely.
And so I'm grateful to them. We have one more. We have time for one more. Bam, this side, they're overachieving on this side. They're just
somebody over there.
I'm not trying to pit you two together, but one over here. Bam.
Yes.
He said the 13th was amazing and personally touching in many ways. Continue. Is this a setup question?
I feel like it's a setup.
Is
Yeah.
this on purpose? Well, I have a new piece dropping. But yeah, we just announced last week a 4-part series that I'm doing that comes out on May 31st that chronicles the Central Park 5 case. And so that's narrative, scripted.
Can I say I'm so excited you're doing that because I grew up on the East Coast and I lived through that case and I knew it in detail. So when I heard that you were doing it, I was super excited because I knew the energy they're going to bring to it. And I'm so excited to see what you came up with. But that, for those of us who live in the New York metro area, that was a real thing that we lived through, and there's still trauma associated with that case.
Yes, so hopefully there's a healing from that, and our composer from that, a wonderful young composer, and proud to say African-American composer. There are so few, and so I really take pride in amplifying them. But Chris Bowers, who composed Green Book, is handling the music for that piece, which is called When They See Us. So music, docs, narrative, whatever it is, so happy to gather and talk about it. Our time is up, but want to thank you so much for your attention and for coming out on a rainy night. Appreciate it.
And the next piece we're going to see is the Angela Davis clip, talk about Trayvon Martin.
Thanks.
Assata Shakur was one of the great leaders of the Black Liberation Army.
That order given by J. Edgar Hoover was essentially to destroy any black, progressive, third world movement in this country.
They put her in prison, and her allies said, we're not gonna leave her in prison. She had white allies that said, we're not gonna leave her in prison, and pulled her out of prison and got her to Cuba. She's in Cuba right now.
In the next 5 years, something like 300 prisons are in the planning stages, and this government has the intentions of throwing more and more people in prison.
The criminalization of Assata Shakur, the use of the media to represent her as a dangerous criminal, and of course in my own case, where I was represented by the FBI as being armed and dangerous.
The FBI has put black militant Angela Davis on its list of the 10 most wanted fugitives.
With Angela Davis, the power of the black intellect.
One of the things that we really have to talk about coming to grips with is the whole question of crime. What does it mean to be a criminal in this society?
That had to be broken up.
And in my case, Ronald Reagan was the governor of California. Richard Nixon was the president of the U.S. The whole apparatus of the state was set up against me. And they really meant to send me to the death chamber in order to make a point.
The actions of the FBI in apprehending Angela Davis, a rather remarkable story again.
The system tried to put the sister on trial, and the sister said, no, we putting you on trial. Comes in the big afro, she didn't go press her hair. She was facing major time. Most people, they'd got a nice little press, You know what I mean? They'd have been there with little white gloves on praying to Jesus. She came in like this. And she devastated the prosecution and walked out of there free.
But the question is, Molly, how do you get there? Do you get there by confrontation, violence?
Oh, is that the question you were asking?
Yeah.
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. After the 4 young girls who lived, one of them lived next door to me. I was very good friends with the sister of another one. My sister was very good friends with all 3 of them. My mother taught one of them in her class, and they went down, and what did they find? They found limbs and heads strewn all over the place. I remember from the time I was very small, I remember the sounds of bombs exploding across the street, our house shaking. I remember my father having to have guns at his disposal at all times because of the fact that at any moment we might expect to be attacked. I mean, that's why when someone asked me about violence, I just find it incredible. Because what it means is that the person who's asking that question has absolutely no idea what black people have gone through, what black people have experienced in this country since the time the first black person was kidnapped from the shores of Africa.
And when you strip out a whole generation of leadership, running folk out the country, killing folk, framing folk, you will be vulnerable to Bill Clinton or anybody else. And they'll do to you what they will.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Oscar, Emmy, Tony, and 10-time Grammy award-winning artist, executive producer of United Skates, John Legend.
Hey. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Great to be here. Great to see you all. And I'm excited to follow my friend Ava DuVernay in her wonderful film. And as documentary filmmakers know, it is a constant battle to condense a massive story down to feature length. Our film, United Skates, a story about the vibrant community that is breathing life back into the roller skating culture, could go on forever, relishing every detail. But it's really hard to submit a 10-hour documentary to a festival. So that's why music is so important. It allows us to tell our story deeper, not longer. It sets the literal tone of the film from the moment it begins, and it acts as a common emotional thread that strings these individual stories together. And considering that some of the greatest music of all time was born and played in America's roller rinks, composing this score was pretty intimidating. But let me tell you, he pulled it off. So please join me in celebrating the score of 2018 Tribeca Film Festival Audience Award winner, United Skates. Here is master storyteller, composer, Jean-Nic Bontemps.
What's up? I got Nikolai turning the lights on. Set that right here on top of this speaker right here. And all that equipment basically is gonna go up to the DJ booth. Once a year, we host an event like this. The difference between a national skate jam and a regular local skate night is we're attracting a larger audience.
In the very beginning, I didn't travel. Why would I go out of town to do something that's great at home?
But now, I have no choice.
A skate party is like an adult night times 1,000. It's my entire community in one rink.
It's a pretty big deal when we do come to a national event because, man, we haven't skated like this in 5 months.
All across the country. There's skaters who their home rink has closed, so they travel to the big parties so they can be amongst everybody. That's like their skate night. When I first started traveling, it was only about maybe 3 big parties. A few years later, other people started throwing national parties, and there's thousands of people there. It's definitely one of the ways that the skate community is keeping some of these rinks open.
Every time we go to another city, we see that we're not alone. And it makes you want to protect what we have.
What up, what up? Not at all, not at all. What up, what up?
What's happening, son? How y'all feeling, man? Welcome back, welcome back.
I want to welcome everyone here to Rich City, Chicago, Illinois. Only place to be, IR6.
On a local skate night, you're gonna hear the music in that region. At a national skate party, you're hearing music from everywhere.
A lot of people have no idea how many different skate styles there are, and there are a lot.
All right, we're about to do a style call, roll call at Rich City. Please clear the floor. They're gonna represent for the hometown.
We're gonna tear this thing up real quick. Ty, go ahead.
Up top, New York, New Jersey, my train riders. Maryland snapping.
ATL in the south. St. Louis, Kansas City.
Philly, South Jersey, Delaware.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining Jean-Nic Bontemps is United Skates co-director, producer, and writer, Deanna Winkler.
Thank you.
So the first question that I am always asked with my co-director, Tina, is how on earth did we make this film? I'm from Hawaii, she's Vietnamese Australian, and neither of us have anything to do with black roller skate culture. However, the community found us, chose us, and so when a community gives you that trust, that comes with a lot of responsibility. So it was very important to me that every step of the way of making this film was done with the skaters themselves, with the community themselves. So when we filmed, we handed them cameras, taught them how to shoot, and they got some of that beautiful footage. And when we were traveling, we never stayed at a hotel, we never rented a car. We were picked up by a skater from whatever city we were in, driven, housed by them, fed by them, and then driven to their rinks on their nights. So we never walked in as a stranger. And I think you feel that in the film. Thank you. So that being said, it was no different with the music collaboration in this film.
That's absolutely correct. The music was also a collaboration with the skate community. I mean, I am not a skater. I am black, in case you didn't notice. But I am not a skater, and I cannot claim that. And nor can I claim, creating the music that so many people adore in these rinks. So when Deanna asked me to join the film, she had already had a relationship with a skate producer named Kizo Kane. And he was synonymous with Chicago skate music. But we also had to think about skate music in LA and skate music on the East Coast. So it was really about a tapestry of working with the various communities and understanding the music and really weaving that in to the score. So Kizo came out to my house. We spent 3 days of, would we call that bliss? Musical bliss together, crafting all of this music that we hear. Actually, the two pieces that you just heard was part of that collaboration toward the end there, where especially when we had the roll call section, that was all part of that collaboration. And really is germane, which we talked about that word germane, right?
I didn't know what it meant.
Okay, so really organic to the picture. And it was an amazing opportunity to really bring life and shed an authenticity to the music and the score.
A quick example is, so Chicago, which is a completely different music style than, say, Detroit or New York or Atlanta or LA, their music style is called JB because it's remixed James
That's why she
Brown
hired
music.
me, JB.
Also his name. And so there's I don't know if you could hear the voice of James Brown in the last piece where he went, 1, 2, 3, ha. Anyway, we couldn't afford him. We had a very low budget, and so we actually had to pull all the James Brown out and then get Kizo Kane on the microphone to imitate James Brown.
Yes.
And then recreate that. That also...
Wait, there are no James Brown lawyers in the audience, are there?
It was legal. And we also had no money for a real orchestra. And so JB found an orchestra in Macedonia that we could afford to pay to play 2 songs.
Yes.
And he had a 6-second delay on Skype. And he's conducted them in Macedonia to get the 2 pieces that we now are honored to have an actual American orchestra playing for us tonight.
For us. That's right. I mean, one of our, I guess, themes for this was champagne taste on a beer budget.
Yes.
So Deanna has champagne taste, but we had a beer budget. And we pulled favors. We just made it happen. And part of it was, unfortunately, we couldn't afford to work with one of these many musicians that are here in LA that are gracing us with their talents this evening. And we had to go elsewhere. But we're going to make sure we can do it again in our next one.
Yeah. So just a little bit of setup from the story. The last scene that you just saw was the high point of the entire film. It's when all of our main characters come together for the first time under the same roof, along with all of the other cities and styles, for the highest celebrational moment in the film. And like any good story writer, right after the high, you drop them down for the low and make people cry. And so the next clip that you're about to see is about 4 minutes later, after the rink owner of this rink that they're in Chicago, who has owned the rink for 3 generations, his parents also owned it, his grandparents also owned it, gets up on the microphone and announces that it's the last night and that there will be no more rink. And so the clip that you're about to see, JB composed all the score for to bring out that moment.
And once we get over the excitement of watching this amazing roller skating and seeing the joy of the community, at the heart of the story, it's about people who are fighting to keep their passion alive and fighting to have spaces where they can practice their art and build their community. And when those spaces disappear, there's a huge loss to the community, to individuals, to generations. And this piece of music helps evoke some of that loss when these precious spaces are no longer available for us to enjoy our art.
We hope you enjoy it. And you can watch the rest of it on HBO if you like.
Yeah, it's tough. One last hand clap for Rich City. Last year at IR.
It's always hard to say goodbye. It's always hard to see your loved one pass. We just lost a family member. It's just something that, we gotta do. This was definitely a dream come true, though. You can only fight so much, I feel like we've given it our best swing, We're proud of what we've done for the community. We're glad to have touched the lives of so many.
When it hits and one of them closes, it says that we're touchable. It says that if it can happen at a national party, it can happen anywhere.
If all of the rinks close, then we're stuck. We gotta go back to skating outside, skating in the church or in a gymnasium like they used to do back before we had all the rinks. It's old history. I think a lot of the spirit of the people is lost when rinks close. You're not attached to a tradition that ties the generations together. You're not having that connection that people had before you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back executive producer of Independent Lens, Lois Vossen.
Our next film, Aui's in Season, examines the impact of more than a century of lynching African Americans and connects this form of racial terrorism to racial violence today. Many people are seeking justice and reconciliation on a grassroots level, and much of what's happening in communities across our country dealing with historical lynchings was mirrored in rural North Carolina, where 17-year-old Lennon Lacey was found hanging from a swing set in 2014. Aui's in Season spotlights his family's fight for justice. Winner of a special jury award for moral urgency at this year's Sundance Film Festival, Aui's in Season explores the trauma of lynching terror and also reflects love and action as we witness people showing up for the victims and each other with the kind of love that requires we confront racial violence regardless of how difficult. We want to warn you that the scenes we'll share with you are deeply disturbing. They reflect the pain of more than a century of injustice that continues to bleed into our present. With music from our gifted composer, Osei Assed, this is Aui's in Season.
Someone in your family gets hurt, you hurt. And until this wound is fixed and heals, this neighborhood will always hurt and always be an open wound.
Highway 211. There's a male subject hanging from the swing. A black male subject hanging from the swing. Oh God, Patty. Oh Lord. Okay. Can you have anyone there with him, or you can cut him down from the swing? We need to see if he's breathing. He's not breathing, Patty. Patty, please tell me. Hold on just a minute, please. Hold on. Oh God.
If you read the accounts of lynching, the acts themselves were so horrifying that they became a kind of internal story of so many communities. And yet, like children, we still hope and pray that it's far enough in the past that maybe we never have to talk about it.
This report is published with the hope that its sheer sadism and abnormal cruelty may stir thoughtful Americans to action. If this report does not do so, we fear that the situation is hopeless.
We have the Moores Ford lynching from 1946, and no one has been charged. And you mean to tell me, after all these years, no one will speak up? That angers me. Somebody knows something.
I think that he was murdered. I think they hung him up to make it look like a suicide. The group of people in this area, some of them are all for a good show of a lynching.
It makes you realize that things like that still happen. We might not see them all the time, but they still happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Always in Season, director, producer, writer Jacqueline Olive, and composer Osei Essett.
It was incredible collaborating with Osei. Our lead editor, Don Bernier, and I worked really hard focusing on creating a structure, a narrative structure that was nuanced, that was rich, and that was layered. And we took the same approach with the score. One of the things that it was really important is that we got that first cue right, because it embodies the sound world. And so we really wanted to bring the humanity of our characters out, the humanity of the lynching victims. And often people think of lynching victims as anonymous Black men hanging, and men, women, and children were victims of lynching. And we really wanted people to understand that these were people who had relationships in their communities. They had family, they had friends and neighbors. And so some of the things that we played with in terms of the layers with the score was breath, hands. So you'll hear Osei clapping and rubbing hands. And the voice, Osei's voice is amazing, as you could see. So we layered on moans and we layered on humming, and again, the breath sounds. And then the other thing that was really important was for the audience to never get quite completely comfortable, to keep the tension. And so we used these dissonant sounds, like the sharp piercing sound that you hear that bridges over into the title sequence.
Yeah, I mean, I think finding our way into the oral universe of a really powerful and on the whole upsetting story. We had to strike the right note right at the outset. And when we first started our discussions and our conversations, I think, you talked about humanizing people, and you talked about humanizing people that had never had that sort of dignity. And I think there was nothing more human than the voice. And finding a way to incorporate it and use it was, for me, incredibly challenging, but so rewarding, and I think really served its purpose dutifully, and I can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah, you did an amazing job, and Osei's voice is so textured, so it's really powerful, and we just layered a number of things on to really complicate the story, this narrative that's often, if it's looked at all, it's looked at very simplistically, and so it was really important to us. I'd like to thank the orchestra. You've been playing really beautifully, and I appreciate you contributing to this, and to thank you all for coming out.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome director and producer of Love Gilda, Lisa D'Appolito.
I have to say the best thing about making a documentary is meeting other documentary makers and how brave they are and the stories that they want to tell. So I really want to acknowledge everybody, that all the films that you're seeing tonight and all the love and that everyone has put into their film. So to change it a little bit, the name Gilda Radner puts a smile on the faces of people who remember watching her as one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live, where she created and portrayed iconic characters such as Rosanna Dana, Emily Litella, Lisa Lubner, Judy Miller, and Baba Wawa. She then went on to do movies with the love of her life, Gene Wilder. Though Gilda's career was cut short by ovarian cancer, her legacy lives on today. It would be nearly impossible to run into anyone in comedy who does not list Gilda as one of their heroes. As Melissa McCarthy says in our film, if you meet one person out of 8 billion who doesn't like Gilda, you know they're nuts. Love Gilda has always been the perfect title of our documentary. Gilda's motto was, "My biggest motivation has always been love." She loved audiences, and audiences loved and adored her. She loved making people laugh, and she loved working in an ensemble with other funny people. There was nothing polarizing about Gilda, but she was fearless and a strong performer, and she could hold her own, especially in situations where she was the only woman in a cast of men. Love Gilda is told through her authentic heart and her voice. And Gilda does a lot of lifting in the film because she narrates her own story. And the least we can do is have an amazing score by our amazing composer, Miriam Cutler, that I don't know what I would ever do without her. So please enjoy our musical love letter to Gilda.
I read in the National Enquirer that the Food and Drug Administration was considering banning saccharin from the market. I nearly died.
If you could find a joke, so what if your whole world was falling apart?
I think that the pressure for her to be so thin, to be on television, was enormous. She had to be able to eat because that was the way that she got love, or where she needed to fill that emotional void. And in order to be thin, she'd have to, find some way to handle it.
She'd be hysterically funny, talking about standing in front of the refrigerator and shoveling food and how much she ate. I don't even think we knew the words eating disorder or bulimia or anorexia.
Although we were worried about her, I didn't feel like I could broach the subject.
She never said help me to anybody I knew. And I suspect somebody walked her into the hospital.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Lisa D'Appolito and Love Gilda composer Miriam Cutler.
I'm going to start the way I start every time I'm with Miriam. Miriam has taught me so much about how music really supports films. It's just been amazing. And the best, not the best thing, not for me, but for Miriam, she only had 6 weeks to do the score.
Kind of an emergency.
Yeah. So what was important, Love Gilda is told from Gilda's point of view with audio tapes and her writings and interviews with her friends. And the writings that you see were really her inner voice. And so that was, Miriam brought that out in a music way.
Well, it's really interesting. A lot of times when you're scoring a documentary, well, it's true in scripted as well. There can be various narratives going, and there can, everybody has an arc, and it was really important to find the right emotional tone for the actual inner Gilda, the real person, not just the character we all loved and saw in public, but the person who really had a lot of struggles and tons of heart.
And Miriam and I would talk about each little scene in the movie and what Gilda was feeling and what she was going through. And I loved working that way and being able to really discuss that. And Miriam and her musicians really brought out Gilda's voice. And there were times that, Gilda's playful and she's childlike. And there's just different parts of her life. There's a great part when she falls in love with Gene Wilder in the movie. And it's just magical.
Yeah, I think, for me, as I said earlier, I can't think of anyone I'd rather spend 6 weeks with than Gilda Radner. So I was really in heaven, and also getting to know where all that heart that we as viewers saw in her work, where it really came from her own struggles and pain. And so I think it's always very important to, a lot of times I find that when I sit down to work on a film, the film starts to tell me what I need to do. It just starts to tell me what the music needs to be. And anything I do that doesn't seem right, it's very obvious. It just doesn't feel right. So that's what I try to pay attention to, is my gut reactions to things.
And you didn't have a clean slate, because there were many sketches in the film and sketches that scenes from movies that have their own musical play underneath that.
Well, plus it was really interesting. So there's some incredible Gilda songs, which you'll hear if you see the film, where she's performing, and it's just extra special because she's not a great singer, but oh my God, can she perform a song, So there's these different things, there's the heart and soul of a movie, and then there's the practical stuff like, okay, so I have to get, I'm playing in a certain key and it feels like it's the perfect key, it just feels right, and then I have to make a transition from or to a song or some source music, and I have to figure out, now do I have to change, you have to figure out the transitions. Everything in documentaries specifically is about how do you get out of a cue without being really obvious. It's really, getting in, you can kind of sneak in, or hit a cut or something. But when you're getting out, a lot of times it's not clear where you should get out. Because if you get out here, it's too soon and people are going to notice the music. And if you get out too late, then you're interfering with something. You know what I mean? So sometimes we have to figure out little transitions, or I call it evaporating. Sometimes I just figure out that I have to have the music sort of evaporate so you just don't notice. So if someone comes in talking, the music can sort of evaporate while they're talking and you didn't even notice it go out. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in docs. So source material also. And then there was all this material in the film, which was sort of like the Saturday Night Live vibe. And so I really was thinking about the Saturday Night Live band, which I just loved. It was so funky, and they still are. And they're right up there on stage, and they add so much energy to the show. And so sometimes it felt like some of the music should reflect that, the funk. And for her time in New York City. And then I also had this idea that she started as a theater person. She kind of discovered, in the beginning, she discovers she likes to perform. And so it almost was like, chorus line or something, putting it together, like this idea that she's discovering that she's a theater person. So it was a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, I just loved it. I would say we had such an easy way to work together. Yeah. And just when you know somebody's such a genius, no, Miriam, you're really pretty amazing, I have to say, is that you don't have to say much.
Right, less is always more.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying as a director, there were a few cues that we had to go back and sort of sort out what they were, but basically everything was almost spot on.
Well, you feel your way through a film, and I've kind of changed the way I work over the many years. I find that it's best to stay at the beginning of the film and find something really strong to build on, because once you have that and you're a filmmaker and you are really on the same page, you've got your orchestra, you've got, whatever your instrumentation is, you've got your emotional tone set. And then building on that, building on the ideas that work, seems to come more naturally. So I focus a lot of time at the beginning.
Yeah, we had great conversations. Also, there's two songs in the film. We open with a song that Gilda created that I found in an audio cassette that was never, ever produced or shown. That's like a secret song called Disco Gilda that kind of sets the tone. And then even before I knew what my film was, I knew how I wanted to end it, which was a song that Gilda created called Honey. So that was another challenge for Miriam, even though you love the song, was we knew that we had to end with the song. And that's what the clip that you're going to see today. It's also, I'm sorry, it's sad. It's the end of the film. So thank you, guys. I hope you enjoy it.
Are you looking into the camera?
No. No, I didn't.
Don't look into the camera.
I didn't.
Don't. You don't come in here and look in the camera.
I didn't.
I'll bop you. I will. If I see a tape of this show and you're looking into the camera.
The calmness came over me like I was suddenly home, back making people laugh again.
She was on a mission when she got sick. She felt that she could be of help by being an example, and that's exactly what she did.
And I thought, since I've always dreamed of being a writer, romanticized, fantasized about it, that this book would be something I could do to actually show people that I'm not afraid. I think that cancer taught me more tools for life than I ever got before.
There were numerous times that we thought she was in remission. Her cancer, unfortunately, kept rearing its head.
I remember once Pam and I were there together, and they came out and they were talking, and then they got quiet. And I said to Pam later, I said, "What did Gilda say to you?" Because they stopped talking when I came out. And Pam said, she said to me, "For a little while there, I thought I was going to get away with this." I think she finally realized that she wasn't going to be okay.
I had wanted to wrap this up in a neat little package about a girl who is a comedian from Detroit, becomes famous in New York with all the world coming her way, gets this horrible disease of cancer and fights it, and then miraculously, things neatly tie up and she gets well. I wanted a perfect ending, so I sat down to write the book with the ending in place before there even was an ending. Now I've learned the hard way. It's about not knowing, having to change, taking the moment and making the best of it without knowing what's going to happen next.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from a mountaintop somewhere in Switzerland, we think, adventurer and host of Hostile Planet, Bear Grylls.
Hey guys, Bear Grylls here, just to say have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Nature has always been such a powerful inspiration for music and for composers, and the score of Hostile Planet is something incredible and really echoes the majesty and the power of Mother Nature. Hostile Planet, music, Enjoy. What an evening you're going to have.
Ladies and gentlemen, Judith Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hostile Planet composer Benjamin Wallfisch and Vice President of Production and Development for National Geographic and Executive Producer of Hostile Planet, Kevin Mose.
Hello, I'm Kevin, that's Benjamin. I hope you all felt something there, right? I mean, that was the goal of this thing, the total mix of music. And when you see later on, the footage we have, with those combined together, is absolutely amazing. And this series is called Hostile Planet. So none of you have seen it yet, but it's about the roughest environments in the world that animals have been living in for thousands and thousands of years, and they've adapted to it. But the last 40 years or so, their world has gotten more difficult. Bigger fires, greater storms, more volatility and stuff like that. And so they're out there living in it every day. It's actually amazing stories of tragedy and triumph. So it was really, really important for us that we get the mix right here with the music and the visuals. So we turned to Benjamin here, who has done a fantastic work on It, Hidden Figures, on Blade Runner, and we really needed somebody that had that versatility and would bring the cinematic vision to our program. So we organized then a video call with myself and Benjamin, and with Tom Hugh Jones, who was also the showrunner for Planet Earth 2. And so what did you think when somebody from National Geographic and the BBC, formerly the BBC, were calling you about a project?
I was just completely over the moon. I mean, you know, to get a call like that, because it's completely out of my comfort zone, mostly do scripted work, and but just as a viewer, I've always been a massive fan of nature documentaries. I love just seeing the majesty of planet Earth in its extremes. And I think what you guys created here was really unique, and I felt like I could perhaps contribute something because it's so dramatic. And each episode, there's a protagonist, one animal. You know, there's an elephant in the grasslands episode, a orangutan in the jungles episode, etc. And we connect so closely with those creatures and their day-to-day trials and tribulations. Is a very, you know, low-key way of saying what they actually go through, which is life and death every single day. And the tension and the release, the sense of hope, all those things kind of really spoke to me, you know, in my, what is my comfort zone, which is drama and story. And one of the things I really wanted to try and convey, I mean, because you've got to sort of start somewhere, was just this idea of Mother Earth being this kind of benevolent force, but one that's under threat with climate change. And Judith, our incredible vocalist, who I'm just so, just incredible. She kind of is the voice of Mother Earth, kind of crying out. That was the sort of initial thought for that melody. And then that tune recurs in various ways throughout the season. But ultimately, you know, the show itself, I just felt like, yeah, this is like a thriller. It's the kind of thing you want to watch and get the same emotional response as any scripted drama.
So it's a very diverse location. So we have mountains, we have deserts, we have jungles, we have deep ocean and stuff like that. So that requires a lot of versatility and different types of music cues and such we had here. So for us at National Geographic, it was really important for us to do a new, fresh approach to it, to really freshen up. People have seen natural history documentaries before, and we didn't want to have you experience where kind of sitting back and enjoying all the majesty. We want you leaning in there, totally engaged, to where you're feeling, and maybe you're thinking a little bit later, like, holy cow, what the hell did I just see? Because just wait till the clip we're going to show you at the end, you'll go through that experience. And so when we were on the phone, and I kind of looked at more of the work that he had done, I saw this film that he had worked on called Cure for Wellness. And he took a Ramones song, I Want to Be Sedated, and changed the tempo on it totally, and got somebody, I guess from Finland, I think, to sing the vocals. Now the whole meaning of that song changed, and that's the kind of person we wanted to have involved in this project.
Yeah, that was. I remember when you brought up that movie, I was like, you know, we're talking about a nature documentary, right? There was a disconnect, but the fact, yeah, I mean, that was actually all Gore Verbinski's idea, to take, you know, I wanna be sedated, just like a full-on rock and roll song, and turn it into something quite nightmarish and dreamlike and strange. And it's an incredible thing you can do with, you know, when you subvert expectation, especially when you're scoring, you know, when you take the viewer on a ride and they're not quite sure they're on the ride because they're so engaged with what's on screen. But just, you know, in the background, as in the score, we may just be subtly moving you in certain directions and then surprising you. And we had a lot of conversations about how we could actually use, you know, sounds that you see, you know, the sound of breaking ice and other things like that, and turn them into subtle textures and rhythms. And, you know, we started there, but ultimately I found myself putting that to one side when you suddenly, you know, you're watching this drama unfold, and it became about themes and story and motifs and the, you know, the normal arc which you work with in a movie.
Yeah, because we're not doing, some documentaries you see, you have a bunch of segmented stories that all come together that kind of fit loosely under a theme, but ours, each story flows to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and sometimes we're following the same character, so it's really important that you had music that can weave you all the way through on that. So we're going to set up our clip here that you're going to watch, and it is one of those ones. It's one of those roller coasters. It has a lot of different types of emotions to go to it from, and takes place in Greenland. So again, every story we did in this episode, in the series, this is from the Mountains episode, which what you heard there was from the last cue from the Mountains episode, and this is one of the earlier cues. Every animal's life has changed in the last 10 years. What is different in their life? So in this case, the geese are flying up to Greenland to live in this very remote area, and they're 2 weeks earlier now, so everything is set in motion. All the jeopardy, they're tired, they haven't got a chance to rest, and then they have to make a big, big decision. So let me tell us about your process here, how the challenges of this project. And that.
I mean, in many ways, this next sequence, which by the way is pretty intense, just should warn you, it sums up a lot of the ethos of the whole season, I feel like, because you don't hold back. You know, you show things as they are. And the idea here, it's survival at its highest stakes. I won't tell you much about the scene yet, but you know, you see something mind-boggling, and I think, you know, in the position of composer, I thought, okay, this is an 8-minute sequence in kind of 3 chapters, and you want to make sure that, you know, at the end there is a release to all the tension, and it was just a case of going with that emotion of, I mean, it's very much about the, you know, the child and the parent, and there's a lot of, I don't want to give it away. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. But I think I actually found this very hard to work on as a sequence, and you'll probably see why. But it was just about, okay, let's just make sure the audience are absolutely with every, emotional nuance here, and kind of get out of the way, and just let the scene play out.
So it's really important that this is real life. So he does more scripted, where it's all planned out and actors go home after work. This is real life. This is real life and death. So it has real emotional resonance on that.
Yeah, you kind of have even more responsibility, to these animals, but because this is actually happening, and yeah.
So April 1st, you can see the whole episode.
Yeah.
All right.
This is the Barnacle Geese. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
The Arctic Circle. Nowhere is the planet warming faster. Spring has arrived here early. And that's bad news for the barnacle geese that breed in these mountains. Many nests have failed. But not this one. Three chicks. They're lucky to have made it. Forced by the early spring, the parents rushed to their migration. They arrived exhausted. The female sat on the eggs for 25 days. She's lost 30% of her body weight. But for this family, the greatest challenge is still to come. The parents chose to nest on this 400-foot pinnacle. It's the only way to evade predators. Just one problem. The grass they eat is a mile away, by the river. And barnacle geese can't feed their young in the nest. If the chicks don't feed within 36 hours, they'll starve. And these chicks won't be able to fly for another month. The parents are living proof there is a solution. Just not an easy one. Dad leads the way. But the chicks are instinctively bonded to Mum. Where she goes, they follow. Incredibly, it survived. but it's stunned. And now dangerously exposed. One chick gone. Now hope rests with the other two. The back of the spire is a shorter drop. But it's much harder to avoid the rocks. For this chick, there will be no escape. The third and last surviving chick. The snow cushions the impact, but offers no grip. Only around 50% of chicks hatched on these cliffs make it through the first month. With the seasons increasingly unpredictable, fewer chicks will survive. But this chick, at least, has defied the odds.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our event. Thank you and good night.